wait, not yet. Not yet. There we go.
Through the fires of a culture that praises the unrighteous and celebrates mediocrity. It's time for a new age, when power to tell stories of the future will be in the hands of the people. Rise up! Become the culture! Hail the Iron Age!
Welcome to the show. This is episode 7 of Iron Age Legends. And this episode, I'll be talking to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Timo Burnham.
It's me.
How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Oh, you know, it's very hard to see when I have glasses on indoors, but it's part of the persona, so, suffer through.
Yep.
Yo, what's up?
Our art.
What's up, Tim McKay? Yeah, nope. I that's what I love about this show. I bring in all these talented people, all these authors, musicians, and the like, and then I'm just like, and I yell at people on the internet. That's what I'm good at.
Yep.
So
we all have our gifts. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. And your gift has progressed quite a bit, as I've read most of the Black Saint, and I finished listening to and partially reading Dawn of the Black Sun. And this is one of your earlier works, if not your earliest work that you published. And this is your most recent. Yeah. Oh, so this is your most recent, or your most earliest?
Earliest. First one I ever published.
Nice.
Yeah,
and
I'm actually curious. What do you think about Black Saint? Because I was very, very inexperienced when I wrote that.
I like it a lot. I think you really found your groove. I haven't read your other books, but I think you really found your groove in Dawn of the Black Sun. Your prose was a little bit cleaner. You kind of understood the structure of story a little bit better. But I like it. The Black Saint starts off at it in a somewhat more interesting spot. The change in the story, like when it goes from the inciting incident onward, is a little more drastic in some ways than in Dawn of the Black Sun. And I don't know whether, it's something I've been thinking about a little bit, but I really enjoy it. And your writing has obviously improved quite a bit in between these two different books. So how many books have you written there, man?
Well, those are the only two that I've published so far. Written, that's hard to.
Hello, Allison Wade, Tim McKay. Hail, chat, one and all. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm not sure because it's probably 6 others that are not published that I wrote.
Yeah. Are they books you ever plan on publishing, or were they just kind of practice books?
they're
a
just
couple different
practice
thoughts on
books.
that.
I've stolen a lot of ideas from them for things I've published, and I might steal more for things in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess I should say, technically, I have some other stories published on Kindle Vella. If I don't say that, Leslie is gonna be mad at me for not mentioning it.
Is that Leslie Shu?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, nice, nice. No,
I always say,
I picked up one of her books.
I have the
I
two
still need
books.
to read it though. Yeah.
I always say I have the 2 books, and then she like screams at me. She's like, "No, your Vella stories."
It's like they still count, man. They still count. Like
Yeah, I guess
I have a
count.
Substack,
Like,
but
the reason that I don't
really
really talk about them is because they were written really fast with minimal editing, and they were like super experimental for me. So it was really just it was more practice, but like I tried to make them, something readable.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it represents my
True
general
form.
quality. Yeah. So that's why I don't really talk about them.
No, I feel you. I feel you on that. I have a Substack that I hardly post on, so that's one of the reasons I never talk about it. And honestly, some of the stuff I posted needs a lot more editing to be considered like a finished story, so to say. And yeah, no, I've had done my hand on writing. I wrote a book way back in the day. I wrote a novella as well, and one of them I deleted on my own accord, and the other was deleted by somebody else. But man, what really got you into writing?
The main thing was just I was frustrated trying to find a book to read. And what I mean by that is like finding a book that I like, the kind of book I like to read specifically. And I kind of have picky tastes because I've been reading for a long time, and I've read a lot of fantasy books and quite a bit of sci-fi too.
So like you end up seeing patterns of the same thing, and then eventually you find the people who do those things the best, and then the others just kind of pale in comparison. You get tired of seeing them eventually.
Yeah, and I think it's also like what I would find is like a book that was half the book I wanted, and then the other, like, I wasn't interested in that part, half of it. And I was like, man, if only this other half had been also what I wanted, then it would have been perfect. But it's like I get half of a book I like, or I get a third of a book I like, or a fourth of a book I like. It's like, man, I just want that book that's like just 100% like my kind of book. And I kept, trying to find it, couldn't find it. And eventually I got tired, and I was like, well, maybe I should just try to write my own story. And at that point, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to publish books. I was just sort of like,
I can write this down maybe and enjoy it.
Or write my own thing. And then, yeah, I guess it was 2020 when everything shut down that I actually got the idea. I was like, well, hold on, I just have all this free time. Maybe I should actually try seriously writing a story. And I was kind of thinking about publishing it, but I was like, well, we'll see. We'll see how the writing goes.
We'll see if it's good enough, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like you sometimes, like, I've written lots of stuff in the past where it was like, this isn't meant to be shared with anyone else. Like that's the reason I deleted a novella that I wrote, was because it was basically I expanded the turmoil of my divorce into a fantasy story about a kingdom, kind of having a civil war, and I'm like, this one might just be for me.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that can be good inspiration for stories.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Also, just gonna share a couple of these images here and again. Who doesn't love a good sword, man? That's something I love about your book. Like, you talk about, like, it's not too much for considering the length of the book, but you have 3 really prominent kind of swords in this book, and you talk about them just enough to give me a taste. And I love that they looked exactly how I pictured them when you sent me the art here as well. It's fantastic, man.
Well, that's good. I don't actually. Yeah, I can't remember exactly how I described them. I tried to describe them to fit with the art, but I usually with my descriptions, I hold off a little bit, just because I find that people
imagine what they want to.
Yeah, they imagine what they want to. Most people do. So even if you try really hard to make it like, this is exactly what it looks like, here's a whole chapter, Like they're just gonna have that picture of whatever they decided already, so it doesn't matter. So I usually just let them kind of add their own imagination to it.
Oh, absolutely. But somehow, like the like, not a big spoiler, small spoiler for Dawn of the Black Sun. Part of the perspective is told by a man who encounters a sentient weapon in the desert, and the sword that he finds in the desert that he kind of allies with in a somewhat of a unified purpose. That one, I don't remember if it was described in detail like the other two were, but it appeared pretty much exactly like this is an image of that sword, and it's pretty much exactly as I pictured. Yes, for legal purposes.
Yep.
But no, man, what was it that you put into your books, both the Black Saint and Dawn of the Black Sun, that you were missing in other fantasy and sci-fi books that you were reading at the time?
Well, some of it was actually subtracting, which is shorter, faster paced books that focused more on the plot, that didn't have like an entire chapter where the characters are just sitting around and having character moments. Not that that's bad, but and obviously there's readers who like that kind of stuff, but for me, I kind of prefer the plot driven type of story that keeps moving at a constant pace.
A little more pulp styled in that way,
Yeah.
you think? Yeah, no, I like, even as I was reading the Black Saint, I'm like, there's a little bit of shared like DNA between, like, say, this book and Razor Fist's The Long Moonlight, kind of in the dark, shadowy figure in a city skulking about in the shadows kind of thing. And both in that and in the way that the story kind of just moved along. It didn't linger for too long in any one spot, which I appreciated.
Yeah. And Black Saint, one of my big inspirations for that was the first season of Netflix Daredevil.
Oh, dude, remember when you were excited for the Marvel Netflix shows, like Daredevil season 1 and 2 came out, and I was in it, man. And then I'm like, well, they're coming out with other shows, maybe they're not going to be as good. Who knows? I hope they are. Watch Jessica Jones season 1. I'm like, yo, it is so good. And then Luke Cage came. I'm like, it's hit and miss. It has some good things, some bad things. And then they just flushed the whole thing down the toilet with the Defenders and Iron Fist. How could they F up Iron Fist that badly after so many good shows?
Yeah, they peaked with season 1 Daredevil, and then season 2 Daredevil was still really good. I think maybe slightly less good. And then Jessica Jones was good, and then but it was just going down, and then it went down real fast.
Yeah.
But that first season, like, that's still one of my favorite like seasons of any television like ever.
Oh, what's his name? Vincent D'Onofrio as
Kingpin.
Dude, like, between him and David Tennant as the Purple Man in Jessica Jones.
Yeah, David Tennant was a really good villain too.
Yeah, both in the like, because the Purple Man sounds like a very boring villain up until you see the way they executed it in the show. And even Kingpin kind of sounds like a boring villain too, to the untrained eye or someone who hasn't read comics very much. I'm like, but he's a figurehead who's gone up against Spider-Man and Daredevil, and he's almost like a Lex Luthor in the Marvel kind of universe, which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have your first book, The Black Saint, and you watch Daredevil season 1. You're like, man, I really want some more of this. I want something that kind of captures the vibe of that. And so I appreciate that, but it's interesting to me because you start off this book with the upper crust ballroom scenes and adopting animal pets, and then things get different. But I like that it was such a drastic change in the beginning of this book from what his normal was into the more action oriented aspects of the book.
I'm glad you like it. That was probably accidental on my part, but I guess it worked out.
Well, yeah, because like if you're following anything close to a hero's journey or anything that kind of somewhat is inspired by that, you have to have a starting point. Like You have to have the farm, the home, the normal life that is disrupted, and then forces or kind of pulls the hero of the story into the story. I think the motivation found in the for your character in Dawn of the Black Sun is a little bit stronger. Obviously you went pretty hard, you went a little hardcore with it, but nothing that any advanced fantasy reader hasn't read about before. But but that's the simplicity of it. It's a beautiful simplicity of it. You don't need to have this complicated, like, really weird reason for people to do things. Like, people are driven a lot by their kind of base urges and base desires, and your character in that starts off wanting revenge and or at least justice for the injustice that was given to him and his village at the beginning of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually something. So a lot of what I did in Black Saint was like me kind of stumbling around trying to figure out how you write a book. But by the time that I wrote Dawn of the Black Sun, I had a pretty good idea of, well, I'd written a lot of stories at that point, and I had a pretty good idea of how I was going to structure it. And so I knew Dawn of the Black Sun was going to be pretty simple and straightforward in terms of the plot and in terms of the characters, because like for the main character, Ryu, his complexity kind of comes about from his experiences, like as the series goes on, rather than being like a character who has all this like baggage coming into the beginning of the story, and that makes him complex. Like I guess Zash is a little bit more of that kind of character, where he's older, experiences he has.
He's well, it like you did the right thing. You have the character with the complicated past, but of course that's the mentor. The mentor's lived longer. He has reasons to have. He has a past that's actually worth uncovering, because your main character is so young. Even life that's very different from ours. There's not going to be that much mystery in the beginning of that kind of story traditionally. Also, Allison Wade says the map looks awesome, and I agree. Yep. I love the kind of hand drawn feel to it. It's a lot of fun. Yeah,
Boar did a really good job. Like honestly, like I'm being honest when I say it's better than I thought it was going to look when I asked him to do it. So yeah, he is always delivering like above and beyond what he's asked to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Neutron Boar is an Irish artist who has been operating in the Iron Age for a while now. And he's done art. He's done art for my channel. He's done the art for Timo's book and a whole bunch of other books. The Lord Otter's book, Steel and Stormbright, and a whole bubbling bunch of others. Too many to name, and my memory's not that good anyway. So if you guys ever want art or you want to be inspired by some good book art, go check him out. He's on Twitter at Neutron Boar, and he's probably on Royce's Gilded as well. But yeah, man.
Yeah, go follow him. He needs way more followers. Guy as talented as him deserves way more followers than he has.
Allison Wade says we all love the boar. Rangs. Thanks, Emily.
I think technically Boar is from, let's just say, Northern Europe. I don't know how much information he wants about himself. But he was living in Ireland for a while, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing. I don't know if he's still there or not. But someone commented something on one of his posts the other day that I just, what? Oh yeah, I'm a whore for the boar. That's right. Oh man, I love it. And so also over on Twitter, it was I told people if they had any particular questions they could ask us, and someone did. It was Andrew Campbell on Twitter asked, "Where do you get your ideas from?" We both, I'm sure I'll let you answer this first, because yeah, there's lots of what. So what about you? Where, like, first book you got from Daredevil, and where did you get your ideas for Dawn of the Black Sun?
Well, I mean, the correct answer for every author is you get your ideas from everywhere, but I assume he probably wants some specifics.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, so for Dawn, it was, I think I've talked about this before. So I already kind of had several ideas for a sort of Asian style fantasy story. And then I read Will White's Cradle series, which is a progression fantasy. Which, if you don't know, it's like the kind of story where it's very focused on, like, basically the entire plot is about the main character getting stronger. So it's really similar. Like if you,
it's like a shonen battle.
Yeah, shonen battle manga or anime. Yeah, very similar structure to that, where it's like the character is like fighting a lot, and he's like always getting another power, another level, and then eventually, depending on the anime, you get to the end, and he fights he fights the bad guy and he beats the bad guy, and then everybody's happy. But the story is just about him getting stronger and stronger and learning new moves and all that.
Overcoming and becoming better and becoming what the world really needs him to be. It's not usually in these kind of stories at first, it comes from a single person, the main character's desire to overcome an obstacle in front of him, get revenge, whatever it may be. And in most of these stories, eventually it turns into something bigger than just himself, which I enjoy as well. It's not always the case, but typically. Also, oh yeah, hello Otter, thanks for joining us, man. And Allison Wade says, we get ideas from obscure symbolism in our dreams. You might, Allison Wade, but I do not remember any of my dreams. So, unfortunately, that is no source of storytelling for me. Very, very sad.
I only remember, like, my bad dreams, which sucks, so...
I feel you there. Yeah, I remember a few bad dreams from my childhood, and occasionally I'll wake up. I'll know I had a really bad dream, and I'll feel it in my soul, in my blood. It'll be thick and black and dark, but I'll have no memory of what actually happened.
You just wake up and you just feel bad. You're like, yeah, it was a dream.
It's like, oh yep, I must have dreamed. Too bad I can't remember it, but Otters. We doing Kung Fu magic yet? Yes, Otter. Of course we're doing Kung Fu magic. That's why we're here. It's always fun when getting ready to do these shows, man. Like, as everybody, I'm like, I want to do a promotion video. Sometimes I read a portion of the book and I'll put images over it and a little bit of music that I either create or have someone else do for me. And with yours, I'm like, he has Kung Fu in his book. Why don't I just make a dumb, funny Kung Fu video? It'd be fun.
Yeah, I was impressed. Like, you made that pretty fast, didn't you? Like, half an
I made
hour
that. I started like an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half ago.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it, man. I love making stuff like that. Evely says, my dreams would make for totally retarded stories. That's what you should write, Evely. You should write those stories. Turn it into a funny story, like My Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, something like that. That's kind of a retarded story that was given substance.
Allison liked the video.
Oh, thank you, Allison. I appreciate it. Those are just the best stories, though. Yeah, no, those are fun, but yeah, no, we get them from a lot of different places. So you had that. I'm curious because you're like Kung Fu fantasy, which is somewhat of an emerging genre at this point. I read the trilogy, the Jade City trilogy, or Jade Legacy trilogy. I can't remember her name right now. But it's another Kung Fu fantasy kind of story, and it reminded me of your book in some ways, and some of the ways the powers work. Any chance you ever read that?
I haven't read that. I'm aware of it, but I haven't read it. My TBR is already full of fellow authors' books to read, so.
That's the thing, man. You become an author, and it's like, hey, I've met a lot of other cool authors. Now I got to read all their stuff too. That's my secret, Cap. I don't have anything written yet.
Yeah. Except you don't actually read them because you spend all your free time writing.
That's the problem. For me, I have writing that I do, but I also have YouTube, I have the kids, I have more than a full-time job. I've got streaming like this, and it's all fun, but it's hard to dedicate time for everything as well. Plus, I'm addicted to Helldivers too, and that's its own kind of problem.
Yeah. Yeah, video games are very dangerous when you're trying to be productive.
Oh yeah. Which is a good thing because I don't have video games at home. I have it here at the office only. So at least it's not transferring over to that part of my life. So what about you? Are you a gamer? You like playing games? Is that what that sounds like a freaking old man, but
Are you a gamer?
Hello, fellow kids.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that. I don't spend that much time playing games because um,
You
like
don't
I
have
just
that much time.
prioritize. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of free time, but I prioritize a lot of it for writing. So
Well, that's
um,
honestly the way that it should be. Honestly.
yeah, but I actually like now that I'm old, I don't I don't know. I don't get addicted to very many games like I used to when I was like 20. So it's not that hard. I think Hunt Showdown is like the one game that I just consistently have been playing for the past like 4 years.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
still really
I've
like
actually
it.
played with you once or twice. Actually, that was fun.
Yeah, we played a few games.
I'm very bad at Hunt Showdown. Everybody dies in Hunt Showdown.
Yeah, everyone is really bad at Hunt Showdown. Even when you're good at it, you're bad at it.
That's the thing too.
It's just when you have a shooter where like literally any single bullet can kill you at any time, like you're gonna be bad at it most of the time.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's the law. Like I think might be why I like Helldivers 2 so much. It's like you die a lot, but you never feel like your obstacle is like there's a unified front against the obstacle, and you're working together as a team. It's more about how good at teamwork are you rather than how good are you individually. Which don't get me wrong, I like if I want to test my individual gaming skill, I'll just play Jump King until my eyes bleed, but it's not a bad way to go, man. So, what about upcoming and future projects? Yeah, I think I've talked to you a little bit behind the scenes, and you mentioned you are working on a sequel to this book, which deserves a sequel. It's a very, very good book. If you guys don't know, I posted a link for it in the chat here just a little bit ago, but Donald the Black Sun, it's available on ebook, paperback, obviously, and he has an excellent audiobook by Sonnet. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just the word sonnet. I think he's son of sonnet on Twitter or wherever else he has accounts.
And yeah, don't get me wrong. I do live readings of books, and occasionally I recorded something for a friend of mine recently that I'm gonna get the sound condensed and done properly. But he Sonnet is a professional, man, and he is very, very good at what he does. I aspire to be that good someday. So absolutely, if you're into audiobooks, absolutely check out Dawn of the Black Sun. It's a great way to absorb that book. But yeah, so what about future projects? What are you working on right now, if it's something you're willing to share?
Well, so what I'm working on right now is not the sequel to Dawn of the Black Sun, but that's because the sequel is done and it's about to release. So
hell yeah, brother. What is that going to be released? Let's tickle their kahunas a little bit.
All right. So hopefully this month. And I said that last month and I was wrong. But hopefully this month.
Excellent.
No, that's so great.
So,
I love that.
Yeah, I mean the whole manuscript is finished. You could read it. The only thing that we need now is the interior artwork pieces, and once that's done, it'll be 100% ready to upload and publish.
Nice.
So,
do you have the audiobook ready to go too, or is that something you're still have in the wings?
No, that'll have to be later on. I plan to do it, but I'm just focused on just getting the paperback and the ebook
formatted.
Published. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, formatting is something like I can write well enough and even edit some of my own stuff to a point until I hand it off to a friend. But formatting, it's so like it's not in my skill set at all. I like this computer I have right here. This is the first computer I've ever owned in my life, and I got it like 6 or more, almost 8, just maybe 9 or 10 months ago. And so like there's a lot of computer skill stuff that I'm not there with it, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's something like once you've written a few books, like you realize like you just put you put most of the formatting in like as you're writing the draft, and then you don't have to like do a whole bunch of work at the end. So you can kind of save yourself some time once you know what you're doing.
Oh,
but yeah,
absolutely.
Allison has already read book 2.
Wait, hold on. I got it.
Allison Wade has beta read the sequel, and she claims it's even cooler than the first book. Based.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, I don't know how biased I am, but I think book 2 is better than book 1, but also I think that's kind of the structure of like the series is you
Well, yeah,
start very
you
simple.
have a lot of necessary set. Like most of the first book is just a journey to get to where the story really starts in some ways. Like not to discount what's happened in the first book. It's definitely a journey all its own, but it does feel a little bit like a setup book, as is necessary depending on the structure of your overall story.
Yeah. I think I make a whole bunch of promises in book 1, and one thing I like about book 2 is that I finally get to start paying off some of those promises. So we finally start getting to see some of the really cool stuff that I was setting up in book 1. And obviously there's a lot more things that don't happen in there, but we finally get to some really cool stuff in book 2.
I'm curious,
a lot more action, cool fights, interesting powers.
And your characters are fun and interesting and different. Like you definitely made it so each character felt like a distinctly different person, which is something a lot of authors in the indie space I've noticed tend to struggle with. Having distinct character voice, and that even in the Lord Otter, I've talked to him about this as well. It's like that's something he had to have a friend of ours help him out with, was to help distinguish each voice, make them sound different in the written word from one another. And you did a great job of that in this book as well. And I'm curious how you're gonna because we've learned quite a bit about the magic, but there's a lot more to learn, and I'm curious how because the way that without spoilers, if you develop the magic within yourself in this world and you're able to, it sounds like there's a unique aspect to the power as well. And I'm curious how that's going to be explored and how that works, because it's not something we've really gone that deep into yet. So how did you design this magic system? Did you have anything in particular you based it off of?
Well, I kind of scrapped like 3 or 4 ideas because I was trying to find one that I felt like would fit, would work with a like multi-book series that was progression, where you had your characters starting off, at level 1 and then going to level 2 and level 3 and level 4 like that. So a lot of the reason it works the way it does is because I needed it to work that way for the story. And it's sort of, there's like 2 aspects to the magic. There is the kind of the universal part of it, where it works the same way for everyone who uses it, which is they have to kind of do the same things to get the magic. But then when they get the magic, it manifests in each person individually. So like, as each character has their own personality, each character has their own manifestation of magic. And you get to see that like in book 2, like a slight spoiler, but like, so you kind of follow the trainees as they train. And throughout book 2, at a certain point, you get to see the unique abilities that each of them have. So Ryu's abilities are different from all the other trainees, and then Kala or Ben, they have their own as well.
I'm going to make a very unfavorable comparison here, so just bear with me. This sounds a little bit like the way the magic system works in the Fourth Wing, which I forced a bunch of yahoos in my circle to read recently. Have you heard of this book?
Yeah, I've heard of it because everyone is talking about how terrible it is.
It's so shit, dude. And I feel bad. Like, you read the foreword, and like, she was earnest, and like, I think she really gave it her best effort. And I think she actually hit the target she was going for. It's just not a target anyone in our kind of space is interested in. But yeah, like there's like the basic kind of base level stuff with how the magic works, and then they specialize. And I think that's a fun way to do it. It gives unique opportunities to characterize each person, because the power is an extension of themselves in some form or fashion. And it's in the way that Zash's power, is that how you say his name again? Zash?
Yeah.
The way
Zash.
that his power works is in some ways, it comes across as simple, but it speaks a lot to his character, and the way all of his interactions with other people who know him in the story reinforce that as well. It's like, oh yeah, no, you were never much for the meditating, but you were one hell of a physical specimen when it came to fighting. It's like, yeah, his power definitely reflects that. No spoilers, but
Yeah. Yeah, and in book 2 you get to kind of see him. You see him out of his element because he gets sent to the capital, and so he's dealing with politicians, and that's like the opposite of what he wants to deal with.
like all the
Right.
political maneuvering and such.
Yeah, because he's a doer. He's not like a negotiator or talker or whatever. So he's like very frustrated. And there's other things happening. There's like secrets.
Oh yeah, no,
and
you set up plenty, and like we saw part of the perspective from the perspective of the antagonist in this book as well, but he never actually meets the main characters, so it's all building towards them having a confrontation at some point.
yeah,
And the Lord Otter says, I'm really looking forward to the second book. He mentioned he read your book recently.
yeah, he
Oh,
did,
that's
and he
fantastic.
reviewed it as well. So
Hell yeah,
it's
man.
very nice of him.
Indie authors
You
love
do?
getting reviews, man. Except for the bad troll reviews. Have you ever gotten any of those?
No, I mean it would be kind of fun to get a like 1-star where they just like hated it. Because those are
For
funny.
just like BS reasons usually.
Well, I mean, even if it's legitimate reasons, it's just funny because if someone gives it a 1-star and they hated it, it just wasn't for them. It's not that your book is bad.
Yeah.
The ones that hurt are like the 2-star ware they're like, oh, well, I liked this and this, but these other parts they just didn't
I
work.
felt
at
like
all.
this wasn't working, and I
Yeah.
didn't like the way this character was, and didn't make sense. And occasionally you're like, oh crap, I actually missed something.
Yeah, well, then you feel like you just failed the execution. Whereas with the 1-star, it's like, yeah, this was not the book for them. So then you can just laugh at it.
Yo, BS, how's it going, man? And AC Pritchard comes in saying,
Pritchard.
gang, smash that like button. Do it for
Yo, mama.
Sorry, it's how he said it, guys. I had no input on that whatsoever. Oh, and
Yeah,
for those
that's-
wondering, this is Zash right here. This is a picture of Zash.
Oh yeah, that's
Look-
Zash.
What a lightning covered green badass. Look at that man. He would kiss your mother and you'd thank him for it. Look at him. No.
Yeah,
No,
and
that's
that's
fantastic.
by what is her name? I'm blanking on her name. She's on
Really?
Twitter.
Looks like that's a great thing. It's like I commission art for stuff that is never going to be a published work or anything. I just have commissioned art. And so it's like whenever I get ready to publish something, I'm like, I know all these great, fantastic artists I'm going to need to communicate with and have them contribute in some way.
Yeah. I mean, commissioning art is fun. If
Expensive.
I had infinite money, I would do it more. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like I've had a couple pieces done by Matt from Metal Movies and Brewskis. I've worked with Neutron Boar, even Animated Moon. He has one in the back burner that he's kind of developed helped me develop, and so that's gonna be fun to work on as well. But yeah, no man, I love the color piece. It's very like the black and white is fine, and it's good for like interior pieces, but like for promotion and stuff like this, it looks so freaking good, man.
Yeah. And the colors for book 2, they look really good.
I
So
believe that, man. Tim McKay says commissioning art is dangerously addictive. So cool seeing what these artists can do.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is very addictive.
Even the Lord Otter, he works with Neutron Boar as well, but he also had a couple pieces done by Umbrella Cat, and she has a very interesting kind of feel to her work as well, so she might be worth checking out as well. Ninja or Tuliz?
No, I remembered. It's Inessa Burnell is her name.
Oh yeah.
On Twitter, she's Inessa B art. Inessa B _art.
Nice. If at some point you have that link, I could drop it in here. If you have it.
You want the link to her Twitter or?
Yeah, or whatever.
Okay,
like if she has a page or something of that nature. And Lord Otter says she just finished a new piece for me, actually. completely understand the commission addiction.
Oh, sweet. I actually want to see that. Like her art, I really like her art. Obviously, I commissioned her, but I want to see what she did for Otter.
Oh, he might be talking about Umbrella Cat actually on that one.
Oh, okay. Well, still.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see that too. Oh, yeah, I think you dropped it in the private. Yeah, there we go. I will copy. There we go. I can click buttons. I am literate. There we go. Also, if any of you guys have questions, ask them somewhere else. No, just here in the chat, guys, will be fine.
Leave.
Ask somebody else. We don't care. This is about us and us talking.
Oh yeah, what I was saying, yeah. So in Dawn of the Black Sun, you have the main character's perspective, and then you have the villain kind of B story. But it's really the structure is you have your main protagonist and your secondary protagonist, even though your secondary protagonist is the villain. Because really, as you follow his story, it's because it's from his perspective, you're seeing his like journey of getting to where he wants to go. So it really is it's structured like you're following another protagonist.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. And I knew that it would be a complaint for this book that he never meets up with the main characters.
As long as he does eventually, I don't think it's a problem. I thought it worked really well in this book.
Yeah, so it was something where I was like, well, it's going to be annoying, in the early books, but I think it will work well because I'll have set him up so much that by the time they meet each other, like you will be a lot more invested because you understand where both of them have come from. So.
Oh, absolutely. Also, Everly comes in. All right, Timo, I'm taking. Or I got to do his voice.
All right, Timo, I'm taking the plunge. Just got the audiobook.
Oh, you sound just like him.
I know, perfect imitation.
The Iron Age.
Enjoy. The audiobook is very well done. Huge props to Sonnet.
Oh, absolutely, man.
You gotta figure out how to get him on sometime and.
Yeah, I've heard some of his stuff. I need to see what he does art and he's writing a little bit as well. I need to check that out. Yeah, I'm sure I mentioned it every show, but part of what it takes to come on this show is there are two main requirements. One, I have to have observed, listened to your music, seen your art, read your book, whatever you've made. I have to have seen it and enjoyed it, and then I also have to think you're a cool person. If I have seen what you've done and I enjoy it, as well as I think you're a cool person, then you come on Iron Age Legends. That's the way it works. Speaking of which, Wrangler, you're going to have to be on the show here at some point too. I wasn't going to read this because I really liked already going to read this because I really liked the Black Saint, but now I really want to read this book so I can add this guy to my matchups. Oh yeah, he's making a video matching up a bunch of characters from Iron Age books against the bad guys in the Fourth Wing.
Yeah, Wrangler. I was actually. So you really surprised me when I saw that clip from your stream where you said Black Saint was like your favorite of 2023.
Oh, I must
that was honestly great. Kind of mind blowing to me that someone liked that book that much. But thank you.
Considering what the first time I asked you about it, you're like, I don't even remember that book.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the reason I don't remember it is because I've written so much since then, and so whenever you write a new book, your brain power all just goes into everything about that book.
Yeah, you're focused in.
And so what happens is that your brain just kind of deletes all the memory from the last thing you wrote.
It's like, I've already done that thing. It's over. Let's move on. No.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I did it. It's published. I can forget about it.
Theo Anamanth is a badass.
Yeah, he is. He's a great character. No, I love that, man. Oh, holy smokes. I need to get air conditioning or something in this office. It is hot as hell in here. If this is a preview for summer for me, this is going to be a rough time. Those shirtless streams that I tend to do might become somewhat more frequent. So what about you, man? Do you do YouTube and streaming, or is that something you kind of just do in forums like this, like interviews and interacting with others?
just when someone else lets me. use their channel.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
man, it's
I
great.
made the decision a while back that like my focus was writing and publishing books, and obviously you kind of have to do the other stuff like marketing, but I was going to always prioritize writing over, anything else. So
Absolutely. Let's just give this visual to everybody who was missing it. Just imagine. No, just imagine. No, and there's actually one other thing that you dedicate yourself to with fair regularity, and that is meme craft. I've had a couple people mention you in the how much they enjoy your memes. I think it was Evely. He said, yeah, he has the best consistent memes posted in our kind of circle that we all enjoy here, and I'd say you're one of the upper echelons of that for me as well. You find all the best damn memes, man. Like sometimes I'll find a meme and then I'll be about to post it and I'm like, son of, he already posted it. How did he get it already?
I mean, I steal them all or almost all of them. So don't feel bad. Don't feel like you can't post something because I posted it.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely. I'll make a few. I'll make a few memes on my own on occasion, especially like some of the work we've been doing for Iron Seas and getting all that stuff ready, which is fun. But let's see. Can we hire you as a designated meme lord for the Iron Seas?
Does that mean I have to actually start making memes? Because that sounds like work.
If you just have some that are Iron Age compliant, I think that's fine as well. Tim McKay says, "Love those memes. Tremendous, big, beautiful memes. We're gonna build a wall around those memes, and they'll be well protected." No, it's great, man.
Well, the thing about posting memes is it takes very little effort and time, so it doesn't really cut into my writing.
You just steal them from Twitter, Instagram, wherever you find them, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing with memes is you steal them from a different place than you post them.
100%. That's my method as well. We're thieves of the internet. We steal blatantly, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Like hell, most of my promotion video today was just edited footage stolen from a bunch of funny kung fu movies or a few serious ones. I wanted to add a little Bruce Lee in there too, but I was running out of time. Also, I love that video of that woman, the like karate woman who's just like, dude, it's an older video, but it's so fucking funny, dude. I love that. It's like she's way over the top with it.
Yeah.
So man, well, so you're like you've mentioned, Dawn of the Black Sun, the second book. Do you have a name that you're willing to share and or drop for that?
I think I mentioned it on Twitter at least like once or twice, but it's Shadows Within is the title of book 2.
Shadows Within, hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, and that
also this is an image you just sent me here today too, and you said you may have not shared this one.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's seen that before.
Dude, look at that. It's so cool. Plus, he's wearing flip-flops. He's my kind of dude, brother. That's fantastic, man. So here's a we have a couple other things we'll be discussing here too, but here's a question I just have for you. What is a deep moment of fulfillment in this process of being a published author for you? Is it when you get a review? Is it when people praise your book like on a live stream like this? Is it just when you finish it on your own, or you get a piece of art, hear part of the audio? Like, what's a moment of deep fulfillment or enjoyment for you in this whole process?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is like when you get to hear people's thoughts after reading it. Like that is like the reason that you put in all the work to actually, edit it and format it and add all the art and then publish it, is so that, other people get to experience the story. So.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's like I'm very deeply affected by stories I enjoy. And so like the idea of being able to do that for someone else, it's a pretty tremendous, like kind of heartfelt want. It's a great thing, man. I'm happy you've gotten some reviews. How many where do you get most of your reviews? Do you get them on Goodreads or like Audible, Amazon?
I think I have most on Amazon, like 35, 36, something like that for Dawn. on
Nice.
Amazon.
I heard it starts picking up a bit when you get over 50, but I don't know. I have no idea. That's just hearsay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much truth there is to that. There's a lot of things people say that
The,
people just
the,
kind of say.
the nebulous they say a lot of things.
Yeah. So maybe, I don't know.
But no, man, that's fantastic. And at some point when you go when your since your new book is going to be releasing here soon, whenever it gets to a point where you want to release another book after that, you can come back on the show. And once you've been on the show once and you come back, then you're an Iron Age myth. And so at some point, whenever your current project is done being written, that'll be something you can choose to participate in or not. But is there anything about your new project that you're still working on that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I've talked a little bit. I made a few posts on Twitter about it. It is it's also a progression fantasy. I think this one leans a little bit more into the video game feel.
Like a TTRPG kind of thing.
Yeah, there's no like levels or uh like stats on weapons, but I think if you know like what I'm referencing, you will kind of get the video gaminess. Maybe you won't as much if you don't.
Like a Seven Deadly Sins a little bit. Like, are there power levels, or is it already?
Yeah, so I guess similar to Dawn, there's an explicit like rankings. So this story is kind of like the main inspiration was like, what if you took like the Witcher video game, but then we mixed in like the Jedi and Sith dynamic. And so you have Witchers, but instead of being sort of like these debaucherous like mutants, they're like these like almost like monk like warrior type people, and they practice sort of like asceticism, so they don't overindulge in like drinking or they don't ask for lots of money to do the job.
They live in just shy of poverty. They don't seek strong worldly possession. They forego a lot of addictive vices common to mankind and things of that nature.
Yeah, and then the reason that they do that is because you basically have like the dark side, which is something that they can like fall into, and once that happens, that it's basically an irreversible process, and they kind of become evil, I guess, for lack of a better term.
The Dark Lord of the Sith.
Yeah, and so I'm happy to kind of spoil the beginning, which is basically like you have the strongest of these monster hunters. He ends up becoming corrupted. And then he just goes on a killing spree, killing all of the good monster hunters.
Okay.
And that's like the setup for the full story. So when I think what I posted was like, what if Yoda turned evil when Anakin was still an apprentice and just killed all the other Jedi and left Anakin alone?
Well, the books are pretty explicit about how that would have looked too. And for those who don't know, if you read any of the books about the prequel time period of the Star Wars universe, I believe it's Count Dooku sees a vision of what Yoda would look like if he turned to the dark side, and it's like and he was horrified. And so I'm picturing this pretty well here. I'm interested. That's a cool idea, man. I love that idea.
Yeah. But so just to answer the question about the like progression, so the monster hunters, you start off as an apprentice, and you basically at that point have undergone like this special treatment that makes you, I guess, technically superhuman, but like by a very small amount. So you're a little bit stronger, a little bit faster.
You heal a little faster. You're more resistant to injury. You're a little bit tougher. Have a bit more wind in you, so to say.
Yeah, and then at that point, you have to do what in the book they call achieving a new level of absolution, and that will push you up a rank. And so then I think the ranks are, you go from apprentice to ranger, and then from ranger to guardian, and then from guardian to sentinel, and then from sentinel to champion. And so in the story, the only character who's achieved the absolution level of champion is the guy that ends up turning bad and becomes the villain of the story.
Big woof. Big woof.
Yeah. So then the main character is this dude. He's an apprentice. He has no mentors to train him, and he's basically thrust out in the world and has to like figure it out on his own.
No, I love that, man. I love that. Now, also, let's talk about something like we kind of brought up a subject before starting the show today that of some stuff we could kind of talk about, and part of it was bringing real world knowledge and experience into writing your story. What is something that's very personal to you in your real world knowledge that maybe you've inserted into parts of your writing or parts of your books?
I mean, I think the most real world things I bring in are things related to like life experience with the characters. So I don't usually like take like some expertise I have and then like add that into the story. Sometimes like little bits of that I do, but I mean, I'm writing fantasy and like made up world, so usually there isn't much.
Not a lot of overlap there.
Yeah, I mean, so I used to be a personal trainer, so sometimes like just I lift a lot of weights, so I know the feeling of just weightlifting really heavy. And
I got that impression when reading the Black Sun. Yeah, when Ryu,
I can give the reader that feeling with that kind of stuff, but usually there isn't a lot of that. It's mostly like things like just like what a young guy is going to deal with as he's like becoming an adult. A lot of that is the kind of stuff that I will add in from my real life experience of being a young guy becoming an adult and dealing with
100%. The formative years, not the traditional formative. When people hear formative, they're thinking like young childhood. But no, there's a formative period for men and women somewhere in their teenage years. It's kind of different for each person individually, but I remember there's a lot of formative things that happened in my like ages like 16 to 18 years old that was pretty substantial. And yeah, the course of your main character's life, especially in Dawn of the Black Sun, changes pretty drastically in due to some unfortunate circumstances, so to say. So what helped you decide, like, how did you draw the line into how dark you decided to write your stories? Like, did you have a line in your head, or you just kind of decided you do it as how like kind of feel it out as you went, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think I just kind of felt it out. I mean, there's one thing that happens in Dawn that I actually went back and forth on about whether to include it or how to include it. It happens near the beginning of the book.
Figured.
So I ended up including it because I kind of felt like I didn't want to just. I felt like it was honest to like what would happen if you have these like the worst of the worst kind of criminals,
like a bunch of old world Australians invading Europe, kind of thing. Yeah.
Like you have these criminals who've been exiled for the worst crimes. They kind of don't. I mean, they do care about their lives, but they, in some sense, they're like, yeah, I'm an evil person. The world knows it. I have a brand on my hand that says I'm like the worst kind of person ever. So
even if they weren't, they at this point in their life, they're kind of living up to that dark ideal, so to say, whether they were that way really or not. Because it sounds like at least one or two of them that got exiled were not maybe deserving of that kind of thing, which is an interesting idea too. It's like, yeah, you're exiled with the worst of the criminals, but you are not this evil bastard like most of these guys are.
Yeah. Although the specific guys we're talking about, they kind of are those evil bastards. But yeah, it was something where, so I decided I would put it in, But when I put it in, I decided I would try to write it so that, like, let's say, like, I don't know, like a 14-year-old boy was to read my book. I tried to write it in a way like if he doesn't really understand certain things, he might not even realize what exactly happened. And so I don't use
Explicit language.
I don't use the word for what they did.
Yeah,
all that you see is the character's perspective. He looks, he sees something, he kind of realizes what happened, and that's it.
Anyone with any real life experience or knowledge of the world knows what was going on, but it's not so inappropriate. Like I'd let a teenager read it, 14 years old. I'd let my son at 13 or 14 read it.
Yeah, I mean it's going to depend on the the parent. Some might not want their kids reading it. Some might be okay with it, but I mean. Another reason for adding it in there is because I knew, like, as the story goes on, like, there are going to be dark things happening. And I wanted to, at the beginning of the book, have something happen for the reader so that I can say, look, things like this will happen in the series. So if this is not, like, you don't want to read about that, then you can jump out without having to commit, to like 2 or 3 books before you realize
Absolutely, man.
It's not for you.
Well, yeah, it's like I think I talked to you behind the scenes about this as well. It's kind of like a litmus test. It's must be this tall to ride the roller coaster kind of thing. Berserk does the exact same thing with the very, very first scene in the story.
Yeah.
It's like, if you cannot handle this, you definitely cannot handle what is coming down the line. And I would say that's absolutely true in that case. And that's fair. It's like a lot of people are like, oh, I recommend like I've heard one friend of mine love him to death, but he's like, yeah, I recommend Berserk to everybody. I'm like, I do not.
I would definitely not recommend Berserk to most people.
Yeah, I like, if I know them pretty well and I know what they're into, like if they love reading things like Abercrombie and a whole bunch of these other like really darker kind of subjects, I'm like, I'll warn them what's going on, and I'll tell them, yeah, you may enjoy, if you can handle that kind of stuff, this story may be for you. Berserk is very good, despite it being very, very dark. Now that's something that might be worth talking about. What do you like to read? What's your overall reading taste? You said you were pretty dissatisfied with some of the things you were reading, and that's partially what led you to write the books that you wrote. So what are some of your highlights in the sci-fi and fantasy genre, or even nonfiction as well?
One of my big highlights is Brandon Sanderson, even though I kind of complain about his books being long, but even though they're long, like the parts of them I really, really like, so it kind of makes up for it.
I'm right there with I don't like, it depends on my mood. If I'm in the mood for a long book, absolutely, and having an audio version of it helps with that a lot.
Yeah, listening to them on audio makes them a lot easier to read. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe not. I could have gotten through Stormlight without audio, but audio made it a lot easier.
Stormlight is so fucking good, though, dude.
Yeah, I mean the good parts of like a book can get up to like a 10, but somehow the good parts of Stormlight get up to like a 12.
Yeah.
So that like makes up for like the long dragging parts.
Absolutely. And it's like I read Tress of the Emerald Sea recently for the first time, and it's maybe the most creatively, it's not his most creative book. The style that it's written in is maybe his most creative, and it's shorter, and it feels like maybe The Princess Bride, but in the Cosmere kind of thing, and it's shorter. I'm like, I think this could be a very good introduction book for people getting into this story, especially if I don't know what kind of, like, how heavy into epic fantasy they like to go. And it's like, it's always fun seeing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, Sanderson, he's a very easy recommendation, obviously. What about sci-fi? Like, what kind of sci-fi do you like?
I used to like Star Wars back when it was good.
The expanded universe stuff was very, very good.
It depends. Some of them are really good. Some of them are not really good.
Yeah, I remember the weird force wielding grapist hot force users. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. I remember. I don't remember the name of the book. There's one book. There's one of the like bounty hunter books, but I think you. I'm not sure who it was.
The Mandalorian armor.
I don't remember the name. Most of it was about Boba Fett, so it was like from his perspective, and you got to see him like bounty hunting and stuff, and it was really good.
Yeah,
I remember
that's
that.
Mandalorian for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I remember like one part in that book, like they're in their ships, and I think it's like IG-88 is chasing him, and he like flies down into an asteroid field, and or he does some crazy maneuver, and IG-88 like calms him. And he's like, "Hey, you have like a 0.1% chance of surviving this," and then he's like, "I'll take those odds." He doesn't say that, but he says something like that, and then he survives it because he's Boba Fett.
Of course, yeah. Boba Fett is a very weird cultural phenomenon for me. Because he was virtually a nothing burger. All style, very little substance in the movies. And then people liked that, and then they wrote books about him that made him awesome. And now the show came out and ruined him again. So I'm like, huh, what a weird cultural kind of position he holds.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you want something that feels a lot like Star Wars, but isn't Star Wars and is also good, read the Galaxy's Edge books.
Okay, yeah.
I think the series has like, I think you can just read like it's written weirdly, so it's like book one is like from the perspective of like if you were reading about the Clone Wars, but it was the clone troopers that were the main characters.
Yeah,
yeah. And then book two, it's like
from the Grunt's perspective.
Yeah, and then book two, it switches to like a Han Solo type character and his crew, and then book three goes back to the clone troopers. But they I think recently they've kind of changed it so you can just read one storyline or the other. But I've read up the first 4 or 5 of the clone trooper story, and it's really good. And it has all the elements that you want from Star Wars. They have the Republic, they have the Rebellion. It's kind of reversed in Galaxy's Edge, of who the good guys and bad guys are. It's a little more gray too, because the good guys are the troops, but then they're the people who are in charge of the Republic are kind of not so good.
Pretty shady.
Yeah, and then you have the Rebellion who are kind of bad, but then also you sort of get why they're rebelling. And then you get to see this universe's version of the Force, and it's the bad guy has the ability to use it, and it's really, it's a crazy scene when he comes in and starts using it, and the troopers are just freaking out.
I love when powers is when you're able to combine magic and sci-fi in a really meaningful way. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, what I like about the series is they don't have Force users running on everywhere. For a lot of the books, you don't even see anything like that, which kind of is why it's so impactful when this dude shows up and starts using his powers and stuff.
He rolls in like a G and just ruins everything.
Yeah,
I could see that.
But yeah, that series is really good. I recommend that for anyone who is sad about Star Wars but wants to move on.
Yeah, I got something to recommend for that too. It's written by a buddy of mine who lives local and wrote this. Battle Lines by Jacob I.N. Wolcott. If you like, how do I explain this? If you like shonen anime, The Mandalorians, Star Wars, and Red Rising, there's a little bit of all of those in here, and it's a very, very fun book.
Nice.
It's just a one-off story, and it really does its basic question is asked, and that is, how far would you go to save humanity? And explore, now maybe not as deeply as some longer running sci-fi series, but it does explore that question pretty thoroughly for a first time outing. Pretty cool idea.
Nice. What's the name of it?
Battle Lines. by Jacob I.N. Wolcott. It's not that is one criticism I level at him, and that is Battle Lines is not a terribly distinct name, especially in fiction.
I might actually check it out. It sounds like my kind of book.
Yeah, no, it has a couple things that like like a couple like first time writer kind of things, but I think he did a really good job on the elements that he focused on. And like some of his explanation, like I'll spoil a small thing about it. Like there's this type of material that they use for their armor and their swords in the book, and you cannot destroy it shy of using the same material to destroy it. And it's not because of some like special mineral that's in it or some BS like that. It's because the substance comes from another universe. The fact that it exists in this universe at all means that it basically nothing, only things from its universe where its universe of origin can destroy it. So, and like that's one way that they're able to explore some of those ideas in this book. And it's I don't know, it has some neat things that it does. What about you? Have you ever read like Red Rising?
I haven't read Red Rising. Oh no, I have. I've only read Red Rising though. I haven't read any of the sequels. It was. I mean, I've heard that like the sequels are pretty different than Red Rising. When I read it, people were talking about it like it was like a kind of like Star Wars. But then I read Red Rising, and I was like, this is like Hunger Games.
That's the problem with the first book. Like
yeah.
I do love the first book, and it does get better after you read the sequels. But like, how to explain this? Like, I liked Red Rising. The next book, Golden Sun, is my favorite fiction book of all time. Any partially good thing from the first book is dialed up to 12 in every sequel going forward from there. Might be my favorite fiction series of all time at this point, and I'm like 6 books in now. So he'll be coming out with the last book, I think, in the next year or so. So it'll be a sad and hopefully good moment for that to happen.
Nice.
But yeah, man.
I mean, I'm not opposed to reading more. It's just I have so many other books.
Oh, there's so many books, man.
So it's like, there's lots of books I want to read, and I'm just not gonna have time for them all. And I generally prioritize like reading other authors' books who I know the author.
Other Iron Age or indie author kind of thing. I like that too. But like, because indie authors like you and others that I've interviewed, like you guys have the ability you don't have to follow so many of the conventions of the normal like mainstream fiction, which is good when the normal mainstream fiction is fucking garbage. Like Fourth Wing is a grand recent example of that. We had a whole stream ripping that thing apart, and it was a very fun time. But it's like,
yeah,
even with that, like between rereads, Iron Age books, and the rest, like I have so many books on my plate. I think I've read something like almost 50 books this year already, and there's still so many I still need to read.
Yeah, with book 2. So Daniel P. Riley edited book 2 for me.
Hell yeah!
And book 2 ends on a pretty big cliffhanger. And he told me when he edited, he was like, generally, it's a bad idea to end on a cliffhanger. And I was like, yep, I know, but I'm doing it anyway. Because no one's going to stop me.
It generally is, but nope. Some of my favorite books have ended on cliffhangers. Like the worst cliffhanger imaginable. It's like, there's one in particular that I'm thinking of. I can't say what book because it would spoil it, but it ends like at the peak of ultimate victory. And then immediately, like in the last 10 pages, ultimate betrayal ending in the lowest of low. Highest peak to lowest low in 10 pages. It freaking rocked my world, man. So when done right, it's a very welcome thing in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and so this cliffhanger, like a lot of the motivation for doing it that way was just I wanted to leave the reader really wanting to read book 3. It wasn't so much of like, I'm leaving you on this thing and you're like, wait, what's going to happen? Because so the cliffhanger involves the main character. So most readers are not thinking, oh, well, the main character's dead. He's going to kill the main character. So I think it's a little bit, because like readers understand, like you don't usually kill the main character. I think probably won't feel as much of like a cliffhanger to most people. At least that's what I'm hoping. But I hope it just feels more like I want to read book 3 to see what's about to happen next. More of it, more like that.
Yeah. And like sometimes that can, like, killing off a really important character can backfire too. Like, I was watching, like, even on a TV show, like I was watching Gurren Lagann for the first time years and years and years ago. And I don't know if you've seen that show, but episode 8 happens, and I stopped watching the show for like 4 weeks. And then and my friend's like, you have to finish it though. You can't leave it there. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll go back into this damn story. I can't believe they did that. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that I continued this story.
Yeah. You can. I mean, you probably will always make people mad if you kill like a important character, but I don't know. My rule with that, or my guideline, I guess, is that before thinking about killing a character, see if there's something you can do that will have like a permanent and like really big effect on who they are without killing them. Because once you kill them, obviously you can't use them anymore in the story. So that's like that's the last thing that's going to happen if you kill them.
Either
But
that,
if something terrible happens to them, but they're still in the story, you have a lot more you could work with then.
Jamie Lannister is a great example of doing something like that to a character. You essentially you take something very, very important and meaningful, identifying about that character, and destroy it, take it away, make it unusable, something of that nature. It's
yeah. I think like George R. R. Martin is he's a good example of someone who, rather than, I mean, he does kill characters a lot, but with a lot of his characters, he has them suffer some sort of life-altering thing, and usually it's like physically maimed in some way. But, you know, there are other things you can do. So kind of the impact of killing a character is that it makes the reader feel like there are real stakes. But if your character has some other permanent thing happen that like really affects them, it will have the same effect on the reader. They will feel like there are real stakes.
Absolutely, man.
And you will also still have your character.
It's like I hate to bring it up again, but like the Jade Legacy series, it does a good job of that. Characters make choices, and there are consequences, sometimes very dire consequences to those actions. Like one character, she doesn't die, but she was like no pulse, dead for a couple of minutes, and she comes back, but she had the equivalent effect of that of a what do you call it? A stroke. So she has to learn how to walk and talk again, and she never quite gets back to where she ever was pre that event. I'm like, that's a pretty bold choice for a character in the modern.
Yeah, that's a good example of like what you can do that's not killing the character.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess you could do like a kill and then bring them back, but that's always pretty risky.
I'm so picky about how people do that. It's when done well, it's very, very cool. But if it's done badly, you just remind me of a bad CW show.
Yeah. I think generally with that, you really need to have planned out that that's what you're going to do, because you want to be able to set it up really well ahead of time so that the reader doesn't feel like it's cheap.
100%. What are these animals called again? Remind me.
The Doros.
That's what they're called. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Very cool creatures. I'm looking at them, I'm like, I cannot conjure that name to save my damn life.
Yeah, so they're essentially, Boar was the character, or was the creature designer of them, because I didn't have like an exact idea of what they looked like.
Just basic guidelines.
Yeah, I knew more about what their like function was in the world than exactly what they looked like. And so
they're pretty hefty animals.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like a combination of like a cow, a horse, like several other farm animals.
Yeah, almost like a bear in some ways as well.
Yeah,
just body proportions and size and such.
Yeah, in terms of what they look like, I was more talking about like the function that they would be equivalent to.
Yeah, they're beasts of burden is what they are essentially.
Yeah, yeah, they're fluffy, especially the northern ones, the big ones.
As
But
Alison
yeah,
Wade puts it, Doros are the floofiest of boys.
they are very fluffy. Yeah, that art by Ninja Togepi where Ryu's laying against the Doro. That's the scene from the book.
We got this close up of the face as well. I like all the decoration too. It kind of makes them more distinct, which is very Asiatic too. I've seen how they do some of the dog, like how people do some of their dogs and things of that nature as well.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, the look of it, like the way its face is structured and stuff, that was the design that Bohr came up with because I didn't have like an exact look. I told him kind of like I gave him some like reference photos, and then I told him kind of like what animals I thought it would be a combination of, and then that was what he came up with. So,
well, that's fantastic, man. But yeah, no,
yeah,
thank you for sharing all this art to it. I like giving people something interesting to look at while, like me and my guest, in this case you, just like spout nonsense and talk for a while. But you know, I love that stuff, man.
yeah. I mean, that was kind of my motivation for putting art in the book. Was I wanted to give like the reader as much as I could, like in terms of like a product.
Yeah,
And like,
and plus a picture, like if you're going to share something on Twitter, having a visual is pretty important in terms of people noticing and actually clicking on things.
yeah, it's really nice for like marketing purposes to have art. But yeah, I actually think I'm pretty sure I originally got the idea of putting sketches like in a book from reading Way of Kings when I first read the physical version, which I actually listened to the audiobook first, and I heard him describe choles, and I was trying to figure out what they looked like, and I was trying to imagine it because they would like describe. He just kind of described what they looked like and then what they were doing, which is like pulling the carts. And so I was thinking like some kind of like giant cow. And then finally, I got the book.
Roshar is so different.
Yeah, I got the
it takes
book,
a while to
and
orient
it has
yourself
the
in that
art.
world.
And when I saw the art of the choles, and I'm like, oh, they're giant crabs. And then I realized that was when I realized what Roshar is like. I'm like, oh, Roshar is just crab everything.
Like it's not even the most creative fantasy world that I've read about, but it's so different in certain fundamental ways. It takes a while for people to kind of like understand. It's like there is no dirt. Everything is rock. Every animal is some kind of crab, and every plant is rock-like and fast-moving because of the storms. Except for, Shinovar and things of that nature. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I do love that as well. Or it's like how long did it take you to figure out that the chickens are not really chickens, most of them anyway?
I don't know. I think I might not have figured that out until like I heard like an interview where Brandon was talking about it and like they mentioned it, and he was like talking about like what chicken means.
Yeah, any bird.
Like there's with Stormlight, there's so much going on that you just miss. Like I feel like you miss like 90% of the book when the first time you read it. Like you get the sort of like the surface plot, but you miss like all the other things that's happening the first time.
I picked up on quite a bit, but every time I've gone through it, I have picked up on new things because like it's a Wheel of Time style epic fantasy. These books are thick boys. Which, like, you like the story and some of the world building elements of that, but you want it in a smaller package, and you definitely achieve that. Like, this is a decent sized book at like what 240, 50-ish pages, but this is a very achievable book. Like it's not too high a bar to entry for most people. This is a very.
I mean, that would be considered a short book for fantasy.
Oh, absolutely. And plus you got all the stuff on the back. It's
an exile with a sword that speaks, a wandering master haunted by regret, a fisherman's son who has lost everything.
And it's like 3 little plot points right there. Very easy sell there. You've done a good job with visuals and marketing and the such. And having read it, it fulfilled all of the promises it made. I was really impressed with your story.
Oh. Thanks. I'm glad you think so. But yeah, I mean, like you said, like a lot of my inspiration for this series is just me wanting to take all the stuff I like about Sanderson and putting it in a small package.
I have
So
lots of jokes.
that's
I have the maturity of a 13-year-old. I have a lot of jokes that I refrained from at that moment. I'll just let you know there.
you just had like a Vietnam flashback, but it was a bunch of jokes.
Small package. Anyway. Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. But hey, Timo, thank you so much for coming on. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything you in particular you wanted to talk about? Any questions for me? Anything of that nature? Or any questions for the audience, for anyone who's hanging out? We got like 9, 10-ish people listening. So anything else you want to talk about? Questions, whatever you want, man.
Not really. I will get book 3 written soon, I promise, Allison.
She is threatening Minecraft violence, YouTube.
Yep.
Wait, wrong one. There we go. There we go.
She's gonna visit my house in Minecraft.
Actually, if you don't write it here soon, she's gonna request that you.
Have you any last words before you walk the plank, sir? You can't do this, you maniac!
I'm not sure. So I'm going to be putting the other story up on Royal Road, but I'll be putting it up. That's serialized fiction, so I'll be putting it up like chapters at a time.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who post on there.
Yeah, so once I kind of get a good chunk of that up there, I will probably start on book 3. I'm just not sure exactly how much of it I'll want to have going on Royal Road before I start drafting book 3, but it's definitely planning to be writing it this year. So
that's true. And speaking of Allison, I have your book, Allison. I need to read it, but I have like 9. When I read a book, I'll be listening to 2 or 3 books, and I'll be reading 3 or 4 books at a time. So it does take me a little bit, but I will get to your book as soon as I can. I promise.
Her book is good too.
Flower of Light.
Yeah,
I've read portions of it. Partially.
You will like Kara. She's your kind of girl.
Wow, I made that creepy. I sounded like a tank from Surf's Up.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Allison has read like the kind of the first little bit of The Last Warden, which is my other story.
Oh, she mentioned that I want to read the Warden's one as well. I can speak words.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's cool. But hey, guys, thank you everybody for coming. Timo, thank you and I'm not Royce. I will say your name right, damn it. Timo, thank you so much for coming on here, man. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for writing these wonderful stories. I've enjoyed both of them thoroughly, and I really appreciate you coming on and honoring me by joining my show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for letting me come on. I'm excited for book 2 to get out so you can read that and everyone else can read it and finally get more of the story.
Hell yeah, man. Also, everybody, I've posted links in the chat a couple of times, and I'll be adding them to the description once the video is done. But all right, guys, thank you so much for coming. Peace out, yo. Woo!
Based.